We're live. All right. Welcome to the Barbell Strikes Back. I'm James McDermott. Miguel Porter is joining me here. Miguel, what's up? What's new?
I'm all right. Just a good old summer weekend. How about you?
Yeah, this has actually been a really nice weekend. It hasn't been a painfully hot and humid weekend.
Right. We had a little breeze yesterday too, which was nice.
Yeah, I was walking around outside at like maybe 5, 6, and I was like, "This is gorgeous right now.
Yeah.
This is what some people get all the time."
Yeah. Grass is always greener.
Yeah, it probably is, right? Like, if you lived, let's say, I don't know, what gets weather like this? So California, right?
I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
if they get breezy as much as we would get here.
Yeah, like it's hot, like but breezy and gorgeous. It's blue outside. Like there's some places that live there, but I guess when you live in a place like that, you also have the downside of, well, every now and then you're going to get a hurricane or a tropical storm or an earthquake. So
Yeah.
have fun with that, you know. Versus in New York, we don't have any of those types of things going on.
Yeah, we get little flutters of after effects of things, but nothing too crazy.
Yeah, nothing that's gonna like really be a huge issue. So I guess yeah. And would you miss the snow?
No.
Me neither. The, the only thing I would miss is the beauty of when you look outside your window and you see it all coming down and stuff. That's the only thing I would miss. But actually going out in it, I'm not a snow person. I'm not going to go snowboarding or skiing or anything like that. So I wouldn't miss that part. But I would miss seeing it.
Yeah.
And that's it. But I guess that's what movies are for, right?
Right. We can imagine, or we've lived with it long enough.
Yeah. We've shoveled snow off our cars long enough to be like, that was a great, like, 37 years of that for me. And now I've moved on with my
Yeah.
life. And those skills I hope would never go away. I hope that they would stay with me for a lifetime. Speaking of movies, I'm going to go see Long Legs after this.
Good luck.
Good luck. All right. Scary? Actually scary?
Yeah, I would say scary, but it's not like there's so many different type of like brands of horror movies nowadays. It's not like The Conjuring scary,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also not like part of me wants to call it partially just like a thriller, but it is scary. Like it is very much a horror movie still,
Okay.
but you're just feeling tense the entire time. But it is very much a horror movie.
It looks to me like a beefed up horror style Silence of the Lambs. Is that true?
Yeah, I could say that. Yeah, but like more horror, like the horror dial is turned up a few notches.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
because Silence of the Lambs, I don't consider horror. I don't know if anyone does. It has horror elements to it, I guess, but it seems like that. Like when I'm watching the trailer, I'm like, oh, that's Clarice, in
hmm.
the way that they're painting this, but I could be completely off on.
Yeah, it's very the characters are very different, I would say.
Okay, that's good. I mean, ultimately, I'm just in this for Nicolas Cage. That's my main motive with all of this. So we'll see. I remember when the trailer came out, I was like, wow, that looks really good. I don't know if I'll go see it. And then literally as soon as I saw Nicolas Cage was in it, I'm like, well, now I have to go see it.
Yeah, yeah,
Because his movie, it could be prime, top notch Nicolas Cage. Like he's like a fine wine. It's going to be a great glass of Nicolas Cage today, or it could be not so much. But even that when he's not on par, it's still good. I don't know. I'm just a Nick Cage fan. I'm in it
right.
the whole
Yeah,
way.
I think it's a good one.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see that. I'll let you know tomorrow how it goes. And I was debating about walking to go see it, but then I'm like, well,
No, because then when it's late and you have to walk back.
yeah, I got to walk through the mall, and the mall when you get out of those late night movies, everyone goes one way, and I'm going to be going towards the elevator, which not a lot of people go that way. So now it's like I have to walk down like the dark part of the mall, you
Yeah.
know, and then I have to walk home, up the side of Macy's, and no one will be over there, and hope I don't want to get murdered, or at
Yeah.
least be thinking about it the whole time. But then again, he could be in the back seat of my car when I get out. I don't know.
Right.
So,
Right.
or under the car, even more terrifying. I think that's one of the most terrifying things I've seen in a movie like that is where the guy was actually under the car and grabbed the leg. That would that would be the most worst thing ever. Then I guess you can get away from that, but still, that would scare the shit out of me.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to our main topic here, which is going to be the jerk. We have two articles. I don't know if we'll get through both of them, but they're both written by the same author, Mike Warkentin, and they were published on October 25th, 2016, in a two-part series, part one, part two. It's called "Wait a Second: Perfecting the Jerk," and it looks like it's based off an interview that Mike did with Mike Burgener, who is a weightlifting coach, well-known weightlifting coach in both USA Weightlifting and the CrossFit world, as a subject matter expert on weightlifting. So we all know Coach B. We're all a fan of Coach B. What did you think, just right off the bat, of the articles?
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's very fundamental, and it's personally, it's a lot of things that I think I struggle with in the jerk. Like a lot of the points that were emphasized were things that I tend to have trouble with, and it kind of influences the type of jerk that I do currently. Um, but it's also, you can, through reading this article, you can see a lot of kind of like I guess you could say mistakes or the cues that are needed within class as well. Because we also don't typically split jerk specifically in CrossFit class too often, or like give the specifics of today it needs to be a split jerk.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are definitely a lot of pieces that you could take from it, and that would help people more in classes as well.
Yeah, it's maybe subconsciously I picked it, so I'm like, oh, all right, this would be great to talk about with Miguel, for many reasons, and the split jerk is like one of those. The split jerk in class is almost like, especially these days, like a Turkish getup, or just something else that's like really out of the blue that doesn't get practiced that often. I sometimes wonder if there'd be a benefit of like doing it more often, but you'd have to go really, really slow, and really just practice the technique on it. But I think once people got it, it could potentially make their push jerks and other movements better. Just understanding a more complicated movement. And then when you go do the push jerk, oh, this is a little bit simpler. Is this, or you have your own storied history with the split jerk and the push jerk. Do you think maybe for most people that would be helpful or a detriment?
I think it should be helpful. I think you can, like for me with switching, I've now done 3 separate styles of jerk, 4 or 5 if you include like subsets within them. But doing each one, you can start to feel things a different way. Whether specifically I switch to this jerk and I can feel more of a connection in my dip. And then when I switch back to a different jerk, I can carry that over, or specifically in how I extend at the top. And then that kind of carries over. I think it's why I can kind of switch in a day and my numbers will still sort of even out no matter what type of jerk I'm doing that day, because there is so much carryover. If you just look at basic setup, dip, drive, where you're pushing that bar, it should all kind of carry over in that way. Only thing that really changes is the footwork.
Yeah, they all have very similar components, and many times we've used different styles of jerks for either you or maybe even Schaff to correct a problem.
Yeah.
Like maybe Schaff has an imbalance in his hips, things are getting tight, maybe painful. We switched to squat jerk for a while, just so it's even balance on both legs, but we're still doing a jerk. I know when we first switched ever for you and for him to the squat jerk, it improved both of your snatches because of course it would,
Right.
and it also did improve things on the overhead position for your jerks. I think the squat jerk is not great for everybody. I would say another benefit we got out of it was just courage. If you can go under that heavy bar on the squat jerk, you're definitely going to have greater courage going under it on a split where, it just fell. I didn't have to go several feet deeper to receive it. I think what's funny too. Speaking of your jerk specifically, you just PR'd your clean and jerk, so congratulations! Just hit 111 kilos. What is that? 244 pounds?
Yeah.
45.
Yeah.
There's a couple decimals in there, right?
Yeah, it's like 244.2, I think.
Okay, all right. You got to round down, or you got to round it a little bit. But so you just had a nice PR, and you've done 110 in competition at last year's state championships, and this was a huge improvement on the technique, I would say, for both the clean and the jerk from then. And really, it looked like you had more. Like I think we could squeak out a couple more kilos if we wanted to.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I think it's funny too for your jerk, you will sometimes switch from a power jerk to a push jerk. And then also maybe something resembling more of like a kick jerk, if that is like an official type of jerk, where that's the type of style that Kendrick Ferris used to do every now and then. And that's definitely not a conscious decision, right? That's something that just happens in the moment for you.
Right. Yeah, I can typically tell as I'm warming up what kind of day it has to be. Some days the feet are going to have to move if I want to actually get under the bar, if I'm not as snappy that day and it's not going as high. And then, that can change. I can do no feet the entire way. And then my last weight that I do, it feels heavier. So instinctively my feet just move to where they think will catch it the best.
Yeah. It just happens involuntarily.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of the state championships, we were splitting up to that point, and then mid warm-ups you switched to the power / push jerk, and we ended up PRing the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which you don't hear about that happening that often, of just switching your jerk during the warm-ups, because like splits are just not going to work, and you called an audible and it worked out. And then we've been with that lift ever since. We haven't split really other than like a couple barbell things since, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of funny. And you also have a different jerk whether we clean or we go off of the racks. So there's a lot going on here. there's a lot of different variables going on in your jerk. So let's open up the article here. Let me pop up the first part, and we'll just kind of read through it a little bit and see what some of these cues, some of these points of performance are. Go on to screen share. So there are links in the, not the bio. What do you call this, Miguel? Links in the notes, the show notes. So if anyone would like to read these articles, highly recommend you do. You can click the link here on YouTube or on Spotify. And I think we are screen sharing now. Sorry, my computer's a little sluggish. I think it's my computer that does this. I tried turning off the antivirus to see if that would help it, and that did not.
Yeah, it's up now.
All right, perfect. So here we go. I'll get us started, and then we'll trade off and we'll discuss things. So right here at the beginning of the article, it starts off, the jerk really comes down to a fraction of a second. Time it perfectly, and the bar seems to stall in the air while a lightning-fast athlete wedges himself between the steel and the ground with perfect balance. The lift looks easy and natural, full of agility and grace. It's like watching a gymnast stick the landing. I think most people can agree that's what a lot of your jerks look like when you connect with it.
Hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I would hope. That's a great comparison.
Yeah, I mean, you've gotten like audible like oohs, ahs, and gasps on some of your jerks before. Maybe you don't hear them because you're doing the lift, you know. But I've certainly heard people react to your lifting when the timing is perfectly balanced and it looks lightning fast. You know, people definitely have physical reactions to your lifting, Miguel. I don't know if you knew this.
Well, those are the good moments.
Yes, those are the good moments. And then when the timing and balance and agility is not where it needs to be, you have a physical reaction to
Yeah,
it where
right.
you'll make a face and sometimes you'll say no, you'll as you have to fight with it or it just it's funny because there are certainly situations where it's going to go or not. This is an
Right.
A or B answer, like yes or no. There is no in between. You're not one to get a press out on a jerk. I'm trying to remember. Have you gotten called for press outs on jerks?
I think very early on when I was split jerking.
Okay,
I
yeah,
think the first meet that I did, my last jerk, was a press out.
the very last. Okay, got it. Wow, that's 29. That's August 2019.
Yeah.
You know, many years ago, and that like, I was gonna say I can't remember it happening in recent times on when Miguel pressed that out. It's like it's either literally going to be perfectly locked out or it won't be anywhere close.
Right.
I'll continue here. Missed the correct moment by a fraction of a second, and the lift looks sluggish and ugly. Well, yes, that's what we're talking about. It even sounds wrong with the crisp report of a solid, confident jerk replaced by odd skipping sounds, staggered steps, and the awkward crashing of bumper plates. This is interesting. I think I've told you guys before about listening to the lift, right?
Yeah.
In class on the snatch. And the thing is, though, these days it's hard to listen when the music's bumping.
Mm.
You know, even at meets, they have music now at meets, and it's can be sometimes hard to like kind of suss out that part of an error on like your foot not perfectly coming down. It looks like it might be, but it all happens so fast, and you're more scuffing the ground.
Yeah.
This could be an argument against music, I guess. Do you think they were onto something back in the day with the training halls and being able to hear lifts too versus just seeing them?
Yeah. That's a good point because like I even question who it's for.
The
I guess you
music?
could say. Um, because as an athlete, if you're a person that needs music, you're most likely listening with headphones. And I think there's an understanding that when you go out to the platform, you're no longer listening to that music. So you like put on a song that fits what you're about to do, knowing that where you leave it is where you leave it. Um,
Yeah.
because sometimes I really can't even, I can faintly hear music on the platform, or yeah, it's kind of like not, it doesn't really benefit me all that much to hear it when I'm on the platform.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I don't know, maybe for more for the crowd, just to kill the dead air.
It's definitely for that. And I guess there's two components to this, right? There's competition where it's for the crowd trying to make weightlifting exciting and sexy and not like it's golf, and we want people to want to be into this. But also in training too. Like if you're training, like we typically have the music on, not super loud, but loud enough. But we also have that fan, and that fan
Yeah,
really drowns out a lot of sound, which we need the fan. All right. Like sometimes we need that fan. uh, Constant debate on fan or fan, yes or no. But um, it kind of makes you wonder, like, are we leaving anything on the table where you, the athlete, have too many inputs coming in while you're trying to lift? Could you hear your own lifting and make an adjustment off of that? And then also for your coach to be able to be like, oh, I heard a double tap, because you can hear a double tap when someone goes toe heel. You'll hear that. and you might even hear it better than you see it. And I know also as an athlete, I used to be able to both feel and hear the contact and then react to it. That's why I used to like to have metal fractional plates on the bar because they would rattle more. And I
Yeah.
knew reacting off of that when I had to go under the bar or I guess not go under, like when I had to release,
Yeah.
stop driving and pick my feet up. And it was timed based off of that. So there is something kind of, I guess, lost there on having too many inputs and having loud music, but you also gain things with, I suppose, the energy it brings, right?
Yeah.
Probably the correct answer is somewhere in the middle of like, we should probably train with it and without it, probably,
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's I feel like that's a really hard thing to do. I'll be like, hey guys, guess what? No music today.
Right.
Or maybe it'd be a day of like, hey, bring your headphones, have them in today. It's going to be more meet style, like
Mm-hmm.
warm up room meet style. But ultimately necessary, I probably not. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think from a coaching perspective, it's definitely helpful to not have any other inputs. Like I remember coaching the CrossFit class, and it was the complex. I think it was 2 or 3 push jerks into a split jerk.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, and just having the class with PVC pipes, and they're in the rows, and during that instruction, the music is off or very, very light. Um, and yeah, when you're giving everyone the same cue and you can kind of hear that chorus of everyone's feet hitting at the same time, you kind of know where you're at with the class or where everyone's at with the movement. You might hear a couple stutter steps in there, and then you know exactly where it's coming from, who it's coming from,
Yep.
what thing may have been off. So it's definitely helpful from that side.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm deaf. Like my my hearing is awful. So if the music is on and the fan is on, I don't know a whole lot of what I'm hearing outside of that. Like I've been to way too many rock concerts. Like my hearing has been destroyed. And wearing headphones like these and having to have it be a full blast because it sounds awesome, and it
Right.
feels awesome. But like I've definitely destroyed my hearing a little bit in my life. So yeah, that's maybe something I haven't thought about in a while. I'm like, hey, you can't hear without that great without it. So maybe a little bit less would be better. I do know I can probably get away with things more from a hearing perspective in barbell club because you guys are way more specialized. But in CrossFit, there's probably something to be said with that on a more complicated lift like a split jerk. That would maybe be a consideration for me in the future on like or even snatches on having the music be down definitely for different parts just to try to hear more because it is harder to hear on the rubber than it is the wood.
Right.
And again, you guys are wearing shoes and all that stuff. Yeah, something to definitely to think about. Yeah. And also, I mean, I guess let's say in that complex, you have everybody going off of the squat rack, right? If we're talking about inputs, you have a less experienced class and now they're trying to input your coaching cues and there also is all this noise around them
Yeah.
of whatever the music is bumping. Well, I guess everything in balance, right?
Right.
Why don't you pick up here where we are right now,
Yeah.
Burgener?
It's such a meticulous lift, and the beauty of it is that you win weightlifting contests and heavy duty contests. You win with the clean and jerk. You don't win with the snatch, said Mike Burgener of CrossFit Weightlifting. He continued, they should always be able to jerk what they clean. A lot of times you'll see a guy with, will have a humongous clean, but they'll have a shitty jerk. If you can clean 400 pounds, you've got to be able to jerk 400 pounds. And that
Yeah.
comes down to perfect timing, a product of balance and footwork.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, ideally, right? Um,
In a
Everybody
perfect
wants
world,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, it sucks to have a deficit anywhere. Um, I do think it's probably No, this is a interesting point actually. I'm not sure really what I've seen more of. Um, I've definitely seen, maybe more often, I've seen people struggle standing up cleans and getting easy jerks. Um,
Do you think it's switched? The dynamic has switched?
I think it's just the athlete and where your strength resides. Like I've always been pretty quad dominant, like heavily. Um, so for me, I can, if you take the jerk out of the equation, I can clean who knows what. Um, but the jerk isn't my best piece. So I can stand up a clean super easy and have a very difficult jerk. But there are a lot of people who I've seen, and I do think it might be a more recent thing that I've seen in competition of people really struggling with cleans, and then they get up there, and you're like, oh, they probably can't get this because that clean took so much out of them, and then they smoke the jerk.
I agree. Like I feel like, especially like sitting in the ref chair and like seeing it, there's so many times where I already have my finger on the red button because like I'm like I don't think they're gonna jerk this, like, and then the jerk was like far easier than the
Yeah,
clean. Like they almost died on the clean and then just put the jerk away. And here's my theory with it. People do, especially like now, like there's so much overhead work done, and people do practice like jerk skills and stuff now, and they also practice to death the snatch. But I do feel like the clean across the board probably doesn't get the love it needs, especially with practicing the timing of getting out of the hole and like
right.
bouncing out of it these days. Like you're naturally good at it, and since you are quad dominant, that helps a lot. But I see a lot of people pausing at the bottom, and their timing is off on both the turnover and receiving position there, and that little drop, like those that last little inch or two to like boing right off of their calves and get up quickly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wonder if that is maybe going back to coaches not teaching it or being aware of it. That was the only way I was getting up out of cleans, was to be able to have good timing and to spring out of it. You
Right.
know, uh, do you think that there could be hmm, maybe too much emphasis on a programming standpoint of like pause squats and stuff like that, and people are doing their cleans that way than like more reactive style squats? Do you think that could be an issue too? Because they are really popular now, pausing at the
Right.
bottom to gain the raw strength, and also to have the raw strength as a backup for when and if you get buried on a clean, because it will happen.
Yeah.
But then that becomes the dominant way of training it.
Yeah. And I even think I don't necessarily see an issue with the pause squats themselves. I think it's what an athlete's first move is at the end of the pause.
Yeah.
Because for some people, they can stand just straight up. Um, and it almost seems as if they weren't even pinned, like it was a choice that they, you know, uh, stood at the
Tremendous,
bottom for a second. And
tremendous ability to accelerate the bar again.
yeah, and it's really just a lot of leaning forward that I see that really is the issue, where maybe even they got the bounce, but out of the bounce, maybe it's something, when we break it down, it's even like ankle flexibility, where,
Yeah.
you know, immediately that the ankles really can't support that angle, so it forces them forward. Um, and that's really what I see that makes those cleans, standing up the cleans, so difficult, is that the body's completely just pitching forward.
Yeah. It could be definitely that ankle mobility. It could be they bottom out on the pause, similar to how they bottom out on the clean and like lose their core tension. And then they just kind of fold forward. And then we also have to remember, like, just because you have big quads doesn't mean they work well, right?
Right.
Like, it can look good and be big and developed, but may not perform well. And you're still hammy dominant.
Hmm.
So as soon as you go to get up out of that squat, you don't have really the help of your quads, and your hammies just kick in, and you shoot your butt way high in the air, and you're just using the backside to get up. We're probably missing a balance of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like full development of the quads or the whole thigh, really. This is one of the things I remember when I took the Klokov seminar. He started off, he's like, "You Americans, you have weak legs. Your butts, they're weak. Your hamstrings, weak. Quads, don't even get me started with it."
Mm.
And that's probably the situation for the vast majority of people. You have a natural athletic ability that helps you a lot. And I've never seen you kick your hips back when standing up out of a squat. Again, it's one of those things that either goes or doesn't. You're standing up with your quads. If they're at the end of their limit, boom, you're gonna drop it.
Yeah.
But other people will find another way to do that and just still stand it up with their back and their hammies. Again, very interesting thing. I do think it's shifted a little bit,
Yeah.
And I guess the lesson here is to not feed into it with your programming, right? Like if you're like, hey, we're doing all of these pauses, can the pauses also create a problem? Well, yeah, too much of anything can cause a problem. So you have to make sure that you're still doing things that will more mimic like an actual clean. That's why I like the 1.25s.
Right.
I know you guys don't like them, but I like them.
Yeah, I do find them really difficult. But I think it's because those are the moments where then I feel that rocking forward, and it's completely not what I do. So it feels so much harder.
Yeah. You've got to fight it more.
Yeah.
All right, let me scroll down here. This is that Lucas Parker? Is that him in the photo?
I'm not sure, actually.
This is the CrossFit Games, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah. The beard, but I feel like his hair was different.
Yeah, that's what's. Yeah, they didn't list the athlete here, which they should have. What do you think about this jerk, though? Like, the caption under it says, "A solid jerk is a thing of beauty." I would say this is not a solid jerk, though. Here in the photo,
I think with the points that they are trying to emphasize that this works. I mean, again, if this is the CrossFit Games, the rules are very different than what we're used to.
All right. The reason why I don't think it's a solid jerk is the back leg, you can see, is pretty extended. All right, if we were gonna be nitpicky, all right, we realize it's the CrossFit Games, and this is also an athlete going at high speed, just trying to get it done during this lifting portion. I would want to see the back leg bent more to have more of a vertical thigh, and I think if you did that, it would turn or tilt the hips more upright, and then we'd have a more solid torso and midline.
Yeah, I agree. It could be more stacked, which, bringing in that back leg would do that.
And we see this, right? We see this a lot of overreaching the back leg, having the back leg be very extended, and then that's going to pitch the hips forward more. And the only way to stay upright is to lose it in the middle there. All right, I just thought we'd take a detour here.
Yeah.
Take a look at maybe Lucas Parker's jerk here. We don't know. Here, I'll pick it back up. I don't think this is part of Burgener's quote. I think we're back to now the article writer.
Yeah.
While athletes can afford some errors at light loads, very heavy loads require a near perfect bar path. The dip and drive must be exactly perpendicular to the floor, but it's very common for athletes to put too much weight in the forefoot or swing the bar around the natural obstacle provided by the chin. In the setup for the jerk, the chin should be moved out of the way and the athlete should be flat footed with more weight on the midfoot and back toward the heel. Burgener watches the bar from the side and notes any deviation from a vertical path. Depth of the dip is variable, but deeper dips tend to result in forward movement of the weight in the foot, especially if the athlete hits the end range of ankle dorsiflexion in the dip. Horizontal movement of the bar is disastrous with heavy loads. It affects acceleration and timing and can send the bar to an unsupportable position in the front of the athlete. I would agree. I would both agree and also say that I use a deeper dip with some people, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
or encourage it. Now, my reasoning for using a deeper dip is sometimes athletes don't know how to use their legs, I've found, or it's hard for them to use a deeper dip and also accelerate, I mean, a shallower dip and accelerate it and not be toesy. So what I'm trying to teach is sitting into a whole foot. And I have had experiences with coaches who have taught that deeper dip. When I took the biomechanics of the jerk course taught by Mark Chasnov at the New York Weightlifting Academy, he definitely taught a deeper dip. And the dip that Klokov taught was nearly a thruster, like nearly a half a front squat. Like I remember he had me down in it and my thighs were on fire. And now if you think back to what he said at the beginning of his seminar, he said, you guys have really weak quads. So you need to get them strong and develop them. I could see an argument for teaching a beginner to dip sometimes lower to learn how to use their quads and stay flat footed, but then also other times teach them a shallow dip on like what you actually want them to do. Like
Right.
one is a drill, one is also the end goal and the way we want to do it. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, again, this was one of these points that was almost directly at me, because I do have a very deep dip. And yeah, just like you said, I think for me, it allows me to get to the middle of my foot when it's a good one. I mean, there are times where I'll
Yeah.
pitch forward, of course, but I think maybe because I'm already a quicker athlete, sometimes I have trouble with control. So if my dip and drive is shallow, that means that the whole movement is a lot faster. And I never really feel connected in the jerk. A deeper dip allows me to really feel the weight. And then I feel a point where I know I have to come up. And I feel connected to the bar the whole time. The quicker dip, the shallower dip feels a little bit too fast to me, and I lose it completely. Like
Yeah.
I've almost no awareness of where the bar is.
Yeah. I think that was part of the reasoning that I wanted you to do that is to slow you down. You know, I think we've done several things on multiple lifts purely for the point of trying to slow you down so you can control it.
Yeah.
And I know I've done the same with Renee. Renee, I've worked on having a deeper dip, but now we're actually potentially trying to go the other way.
Hmm.
Because right now I've been noticing in shout out to Renee. Hello, Renee. Uh, I've noticed on some of her videos that right like it says here, we are getting to the end range of ankle dorsiflexion, and it's actually going the opposite way of we're not staying flat-footed and balanced. We're shifting forward on the toes right during the dip and drive transition. And then we can get away with with the lighter weights, but once it gets heavier, I already know where it's going to go. You
Yeah.
know. So yeah, there it's definitely a balancing act. Like I don't like to put absolutes on athletes or my coaching. I would rather just try multiple things and see what works, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be married to one way or the other. I know what the ultimate ideal is on like the unicorn of an athlete, or Pegasus athlete floating around out there, like the aura of light behind them and the wings and the white and the beautiful. And look at that beautiful movement. But like you're going to have to tweak some things to like off of the ideal, maybe for a little bit, but then you try to come back to it, right?
Yeah.
And some of that could just be athlete understanding too. Like I'm trying to have you understand what it is like to use your legs and feel the weight in your legs and to be reactive. And we might need a little more runway to do that, right? Because you don't get it or feel it if it's a shallow 2-inch dip. You need 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I think that's all right. I think maybe part of the lesson is don't lose sight of the ultimate end goal and don't get too comfortable with it. Like I'm certainly not like in the position right now where it's like, oh, it worked for Renee once. That means this is Renee's jerk forever. Right? It's like, no, would it be better if she had a shallow reactive dip and was able to use that leg strength that she has that way? That means she's doing less work, right? For the same result. Anytime we can do less work is ideal, I think.
Yeah.
Before we read this paragraph, who's this? Is this Asia Barto? That he looks familiar.
I can't.
Do you remember him
too closely? I don't know.
Do you remember him?
No, I don't think so.
I remember, was pretty tall. Asia Barto. He was. So this article was written around 2016. So that makes sense that we're seeing all these older games athletes in here. And I think they're making a point already of like minor adjustments could be made to bring the front knee behind or over the ankle more, and the back leg might benefit from a slightly greater bend at the knee. Hey, look at that. We like that. We like all of those comments there. Man, is he covered in rock tape.
Yeah, that was the time.
Yep, that was the time. All right, why don't you pick up the article here.
Burgener encourages shallower dips, though he realizes many athletes have trouble understanding how a shorter stroke can result in more speed. For those athletes, often lifters who are very strong or very good at the push press, it seems strange not to use the longer stroke to allow the legs as much time as possible to drive the bar upward. But the jerk is not a thruster, and the deeper the dip, the more joints move out of alignment, which limits speed in the drive and often negatively affects bar path.
Yep, we're kind of talking about that.
I like to think of it as a very short, quick dip to get more explosion, but it's extremely hard to teach, and intuitively, it's hard to get someone to do that, Burgener said. He noted that shallow dips are often second nature to those with great vertical leaping ability. They're accustomed to very quickly generating power over a short distance.
Would you say you have great vertical leaping ability? How is your vertical when you?
Yeah, so reading this too, I think. Right. I think it goes back to the deeper dip is more intentional. Because I even think of when we did those weighted jumps with the dumbbells.
Yep.
Haley's comment to me when I dropped the dumbbells was that I need to squat lower for the jump, because when I'm jumping, I don't need to really bend my knees all that much to get the height that I want. So for me, it typically is a very shallow bend of the knees, and I'm able to get a jump. But again, leading into the jerk, I think ideally, if all we were looking at with the jerk was just getting the bar up, that I could do a shallow dip. But
yeah,
putting myself in a position to catch it effectively is why I then do the deeper dip.
It's very interesting that you default for the weighted reactive box jump with a shallow dip, and it feels more normal. It's just because that movement, part of why we're using that movement like that is to benefit the jerk. because there's studies that show that working on those help your dip and drive for the jerk. And we're going to do a lot more stuff like that. Well, actually, tomorrow we'll be practicing some depth jumps. Step off of a box, pause, and then jump vertically. And I thought it also might be fun to take you guys down to the vertical tester and test your verticals just to kind of see. I got to see what condition it's in. I think it's not damaged. So I thought that would be a fun little field trip to do. But yeah, it's interesting that you default to one on that exercise, but the other when we have a barbell in hand. I wonder, do you think part of the problem with the dip is the front rack, just uncomfortableness in the front rack? And
Yeah, I think holding something in front of you is very different than like arms at your side, or even, when you're jumping, kind of swinging them back and allowing yourself to go forward. You're able to more control the direction you go, but when you're just holding something in a front rack, it's tough.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Let's see here. Where did you end?
Next paragraph would be athletes who employ.
Got it. Athletes who employ the short, fast dip with hips stacked under shoulders must maintain the proper balance in the foot while ensuring the bar neither slips down nor loses contact with the shoulders. The former error will result in a loss of power transferred from the legs and torso to the bar, and it will usually send the bar forward as it leaves the shoulders. The latter error results in a bar that crashes on the athlete as he or she hits the bottom of the dip and begins to drive back up into still descending steel. So the bar's crashing on you. So this is interesting because I'm going off of memory here, so hopefully I'm not wrong. The more forward dip style that I've been taught before is actually called the counterbalance technique. Is that interesting? Where it'd be more of a tilt forward to load the hips and then dipping, holding that torso angle, then do the jerk. And the elbow position was also higher because, of course. So this is a elbows up type of a deal. And Klokov also taught the front rack for the jerk to be elbows high with the upper arm parallel to the floor. Versus, of course, I've done a lot of other seminars where this is more of the front rack position. Right. The elbows are under or just in front of the bar, and that's how CrossFit, of course, teaches it. So I think it's important. Like one, all due, like we respect Mike Burgener to the moon and back, right? But we're just hearing one way to do it, right? Like, and we're not saying this is the gospel way, this is the only way to do it. So of course we're having these errors pointed out that maybe could be also a result of not understanding how to teach a different system, because that's an error within this system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Again, I think it's worthwhile to try both ways, because maybe the counterbalance technique just clicks with your brain. You're like, oh my goodness, that feels so much better. And if it means you can jerk 300 pounds now, of course, it makes me kind of wonder how that would work for you. I tried to teach it in Barbell Club once. This would have been around 2014, 2015. So I don't think you remember a club. So I took the seminar and I came back. I'm like, all right, this is just for today. I'm going to teach you guys what I learned about the counterbalance technique. And some people it was funky for. Other people actually liked it and kept it for a while.
Yeah.
Interesting. I might have to dig through my notes, so we might have to talk about that one day to get a different perspective on it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
In terms of receiving the bar, Burgener looks for 5 points of performance with proper footwork essential. The front shin hits flat and pushes back. The front foot hits flat and pushes back. The front shin is vertical or angled slightly back toward the lifter. The chest is perpendicular to the floor and the hips are under the shoulders. the back knee is slightly bent, and the ball of the back foot contacts the ground and pushes forward. What do you think about all this?
Yeah, for me, I suppose when you're writing it down, maybe this is what you're looking for, but it's not necessarily what I would say out loud to athletes. Because I
Yeah.
think of common miscues, and I think there's some detriment in some of the wording, just as a point of cueing. Maybe this is what you're looking for, but I
Yep.
wouldn't say this.
Yeah. I think it would be really difficult to try to cue someone to where is it? Um, push back with the front foot
Right.
while simultaneously pushing forward with the back foot, because so many of the faults that I find are people pushing through the back foot already and pitching the bar forward and their leg is
Right.
extended. Now, maybe if I told them to also push through the front foot, so you have this both things happening at the same time, you know. But also it's like, I don't know, does anybody actually do that, or is this like a theory thing? Is this
Yeah. Yeah.
like a biomechanics in the lab? All the guys are doing the experiments, but none of them actually train the jerk. Like, is this something that actually happens when you look at the highest level? Are they pushing through the front foot and pushing back through the back foot at the same time? I don't know. You
Right.
know, part of me wants to say no. Like, I never did that. Like, I can tell you, I never did that. And I think my jerk was decent. Do I think it was the best ever? No. But I don't, I also didn't have a problem with the back leg not really bending, you know?
Hmm.
But I can tell you, I was not, uh, what I feel like when I was just, my weight was balanced, I was always trying for 50-50. Like,
Right.
this foot was just dead in the front, flat. And then the back knee was bending, and then the toe pressure was equal. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think most people that we would talk to about it would think of the 50-50 more as like a passive 50-50,
Yeah.
whereas they just need to land correctly, and that'll that'll even out where the weight is distributed. Pushing, because it's more active, I feel like it's more that you have to concentrate on. There's more that can go wrong if you miscue or mistime one of the pushes. Um, and again, yeah, I think also with when you point four of the back knee is slightly bent, to someone learning it, telling them to slightly bend, they will probably underbend, and then that push from the back foot will result in everything kind of pitching forward, which is one of the more common things that we see.
Yeah. And that's when, like, when when the jerk feels hard, they're going to try to move anything they can move, and it's typically that back foot, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're bench pressing, you know, like, I'll yell at people till I'm in the blue in the face, do not pick up your feet. Like, you need to just grind it out through here, right? But as
Right.
soon as it feels difficult, that they lift one foot and then
Hmm.
they lose all their balance because they're just looking for something to move, and they also don't have the kinesthetic awareness and the discipline to keep it right here, right?
Right.
So I feel like if this is a thing, which this is actually the only place I've ever read this, by the way, um, I feel like it's not for a beginner population. You
Yeah.
know, I feel like this is for an athlete that knows how to move and can actually make this cue, which is not a large portion of the population, you know, that we're dealing with. You know, I feel like this is a very advanced cue to give someone. So that doesn't say it's wrong. I just feel like it's not what we're focusing on with people who are just trying to learn to split jerk to
Yeah.
begin with.
Yeah.
Should you know this as a coach? Yes, you should know this. Um, where is it? Front foot. Everything else I think is definitely fine. You know,
Yeah.
I like maybe more of a deeper back knee bend. Uh, One of the ways I've described it or heard it described is you're trying to split like you're on ice, right? So I kind of feel like if you're on ice to push forward or back on either foot, you're going to slip.
Right.
Definitely cool to read, though.
Yeah.
Concept. I don't know which athlete this is. Um, there's Katrine David's daughter in the background, though, on the far left, watching. So maybe she actually, that probably means she tapped out of this strength contest early, right?
Yeah, if they were doing like a ladder style, perhaps.
Interesting. So this is 210. She didn't clean jerk more than 210 pounds. Wow.
Probably not back in like 2014. No.
Yeah. Interesting. I wonder what happened on this lift. This says take a close look at the front foot. The forefoot is off the ground. Ideally, the front foot hits flat. Yes. I don't know if that's why she missed this though. That's this might be an out of context picture. You're just looking for that front foot to put it there.
Yeah.
Have to see the whole lift to make judgment. Okay, all right, you're back up.
I'm pushing back with the front foot. The shin is vertical, perpendicular to the ground. That allows the chest to be perpendicular as well. That back leg bent brings my hips more under the bar, which gives me added support. And then my back foot is pushing forward, so I'm wedging my body under the bar, Burgener explained. The footwork needs to be precise. Perfect balance in the dip and drive allows the athlete to move under a properly placed bar at exactly the right time. And perfect footwork in the receiving position ensures he or she can receive the load overhead and recover to complete the lift. Burgener recommends the following steps to determine ideal foot placement. Number 1, draw a straight line and put your toes on it. 2, draw a line behind your heels. 3, move your feet to the receiving width, about shoulder width. 4, take your lead foot and place its heel just ahead of the front line. Draw a line at the midpoint of your foot and then draw a U on that line. That is where the front heel should land. 5, place the toe of the back foot on the back line. Draw an inverted U around the forefoot. That is where the back foot should land. 6, a coach should evaluate the final position, making any slight changes necessary to create the ideal position for that lifter.
Interesting. I'm glad he addressed this front foot, back foot thing, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously that stuck out to us, and I forgot that he was about to explain it. So we had a big conversation about it. It's not like I was going to say we can't try it because you don't split jerk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not in these many steps, because I think you do all steps 1 through 5, and then step 6 is then, okay, if that's not perfect, then adjust. So you're spending all this time drawing this line, that line, U's around, and then, all right, now move them a little bit. I'll erase these lines, and then we'll redraw the lines.
No. I mean the first paragraph where he
Oh,
specifically
yeah.
says pushing through. But now, all right, hear me out. I have an idea now.
Okay.
I kind of like this. This would be a great thing to do, holding the split position already. Like,
yeah, like marking where they land.
No, I mean pushing through the front foot and pushing through the back foot, forward and back. So like because remember we were talking about like all right, who actually does that and does it happen? Seeing him say it now in that first paragraph, I'm pushing back with the front foot, and then the back leg brings my hips more under and then gives it forward, and then my back foot is pushing forward, so I'm wedging under the bar. What I'm thinking now is this would be a great conversation to have with, let's say, the barbell club. All right, we're going to do some tall jerks. We're going to do some jerks from behind the neck, and we're going to focus on this aspect of the feet. And we're going to get the reps in here practicing it. But do I want you to think about doing that while you're doing the jerk? No, because that's probably too much to think about even when you're landing. But I think if you pause in the split, and when we do pause splits, I think that there's value here on having a more active, stronger hold for that exercise and get this whole split stronger. What do you think?
I do think that this is done though, but in the moment of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the pushing happens for most people. If you're pushing, you're sure that you're in a secure space, and then that's why you recover at that point.
Yep.
Again, I think in the actual receiving position, like the moment that you receive, pushing would be tough. And I do get what you mean by pausing in the split.
Yep.
But if we're looking at the full lift of like, let's say a full clean and jerk in competition, that moment where I feel like you're comfortable enough to push off both is when you bring that front foot back in your recovery.
Yes. Yep. I agree. I think it happens then. I don't think that's what he's describing though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think he's talking about like when you're there, this is how you tighten things up.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he would have said when you go to get out of the split, you got to do this and that. And I think this is like another language thing. The word pushing almost makes you think of like this big giant
Right.
movement where I would maybe just want it to be just a little bit of friction front and back, trying to pull both of them together almost.
Yeah.
So like if you see my hands, this is essentially what I'm trying to do. Bring both, just like slide, but my feet won't, move,
Right.
and see what happens there. And since we are in the next training cycle going to be doing jerks off of the rack again, maybe some drills like this would be interesting, just to experiment with,
Yeah.
But I think with a little bit, and then to your point, I think also if this is something we practice, this could maybe just have tighter recoveries too on like, because that's something we don't really talk about a whole lot. It's like our split and then front foot back, back foot forward. Maybe this would help us be a little tighter and not wobble around,
Yeah.
Although you guys don't really wobble around a whole lot though. You guys are pretty good about that.
If the catch is good.
Yeah. The catch is good. Okay. Well, we are going to experiment with that. Like I like it. I like it. We're going to experiment with that and we're going to see how it goes. It could be disastrous. It could be one of those things where it's like, and I ruined everyone's jerk for the day. I'm sorry, because that does happen. That does happen. Sometimes you have an idea, it doesn't work, and the athlete's not able, we need a day. Like I've done that plenty of times. I kind of did it the other day with Jennifer. I'm sorry, Jennifer. Like I had an idea and it didn't work, and then it was just a downward spiral after that. It's more of my fault, But you have to experiment with things, Miguel. Have you done that where you're like, all right, I have an idea, and then you're like, crap, that did not work, and not only did it not work, I can't dig both of us out of this hole.
Not yet.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it to myself many times.
Well,
not another athlete yet.
Okay. Well, do you know an example of how you've done that to yourself?
Oh, I mean, constantly. My form for everything changes all the time. I think actually this past few months, or since I switched back to push jerk, I think I've been the most consistent with my lifting form / technique.
Yeah.
Because I
especially
have
in the snatch, like I haven't. Yeah. There has been very many issues where I'm like, "What's happening over here now?" Like, on snatch.
I would change where my hands go, dynamic start, static start, everything every few months. But right now it's working, so we'll continue.
Yeah, we'll continue. We'll see it out in the long run. All right, I like this though. We're gonna touch upon it. I do feel like I used to teach the recovery on where. Can you see my hands?
Yeah.
You don't step back because that's time displacement off the floor, right? Now you're balancing on one leg. I used to teach it on like slide, and then you're there, like 1 to 2 slides hard, and you are pushing back on that. So that's kind of one way of interpreting what he's saying. And then the back foot should be active. Then you bring it forward. So
Right.
slide, and then the whole time while you slide your foot back, you're also driving up. It's almost like you're getting taller. You're
Yeah.
driving up into
Yeah.
the bar, versus like staying deep and then picking your foot up. Of course, you might lose
Mhm.
it now. You want to create a point of contact through your hands and the floor, and everything is solidly braced between it. So I think maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to revisit that as a group, right? In both of these ways. Because sometimes you forget, right?
Yeah.
I feel like so much attention is on the snatch all the time, you know? And then the clean and jerk are like, hey, great that we're just happy to be here, right?
Right.
The clean and the jerk are happy to be there. Because also the next thing that gets the most attention is the jerk. And then the clean is just like, well, I'm doing all right, you know?
Right.
All right, so that was article number 1, right? Oh no, we're still going. Oh, all right. There's one more paragraph. I'll do this one. For another way to determine the receiving position, read the split jerk start to finish. So there's another article you could read. We mark their feet according to what their anatomical properties are, and then we practice their feet in that jerk position to make sure all 5 points performance can be met, Burgener said. From there, Burgener said, repeated practice is needed to set patterns that will remain when a PR clean is on the shoulders. I'm going to drill the fundamentals and the basics. 100% correct, and should probably be done more. Again, this is giving me ideas. I'm getting ideas, Miguel.
Hmm.
I'm getting big ideas that all of you will have to endure. Um, there was a point in Barbell Club where we just with the PVC pipe practiced to so many jerk drills, like just the footwork, like jumping into the split, landing into the split, dropping into the split, over and over and over and over again. Um, and it's funny, that was something that I would say I did with a more beginner group, right? I would say you guys are a little bit more advanced than that, like a little like you guys are all intermediates. But I think as a coach, it's good to go back and think about these things again, because then you kind of you forget the things that worked in the first place, right?
Right.
And then you start chasing more advanced drills. It's good to read this, and always get reminders of the fundamentals and the basics. Drill them over and over and over. Even if the athletes hate them, drill them over and over and over, because that's the stuff that still worked in the first place, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I could easily see on a Wednesday us starting with a bunch of jerk footwork drills to warm up with PVC pipe, and then moving on to our strength piece, and then finishing with the jerk again, right?
Yeah.
It's not a bad day. All right, I'm getting some ideas. What do you think about all this?
Yeah, I think, and it might honestly just be because maybe with competitions on the horizon throughout our year, we are more focused on getting the lifts in. Um, so we don't necessarily take all the time to like go over basics. Um, but yeah, I can definitely find this helpful. And
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think we would just need to take a day that's like, let's not even worry about weight on the bar. Even today is just a straight up, let's work on technique day,
yeah.
almost like seminar level.
Well, yeah, and I'm not thinking that far. I would still rather you guys moving more than listening and stuff. But just kind of all right, let's go through a theoretical day 2 in this next training cycle. We're going to front and back squat back to back, right? You as the athlete, would you rather see we warm up, then we get PVC pipe drills, Then we spend a little bit of time doing jerk footwork drills, right? Like we're going to jump in the landing. We're going to hold it. We're going to practice recovery. We're going to do a lot of PVC pipe reps. It's almost an extension of the warm up. Then we do our front and back squats. Then we do our jerks off of the rack, which we're doing doubles, by the way. Or would you rather see quick warm up? We do our front and back squats. Then we bust out the PVC pipe, really hit the jerk, practice, 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 then get the racks out. Then we go heavy on the jerk.
Maybe option 2, just to get the front and back squats out of the way. Just a quick warm up, because we'll get pretty warm after those, and then I mean, but either way, I just wouldn't want us to like lose what we gain from the jerk drills and then go into front and back squats, and then
that's where my heart is more on quick warm up, and then the front squat and back squats are almost an extension of the warm up. Like you said, you're going to be warm, and then I think if we did it where we did some jerk drills, like, hey, we're going to have this is dedicated jerk time. We're working on making the jerk better and also getting it stronger. And we're not going to forget in between the hell of the front and back squats, because, oh boy, it's going to be different. And it also makes it seem more serious, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like a throwaway. I agree. It's just good to think about it. I don't know. What do you think about going through this second article? I don't know if we'll have time to read the whole thing, because remember, I have long legs in 25 minutes.
Then okay. I say it's a post-Olympics return
to the article.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to leave the link to the second article in the show notes, because if you're interested, yes, you should read it, right? I'm also going to go back and add this article that they mentioned here, the split jerk start to finish, because I didn't realize that link was in there, and I think it would be good and helpful for people to read it too, if they wanted to. And then next weekend, you have a meet coming up, so I'm not sure we'll have time to do this, although the meet is local. So what are your thoughts on that? I'll just ask you right now.
Yeah, I mean, it should be fine. It'll be done pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue.
So next week we might do the first ever post meet recap, the day of the meet. Look at that. And I know Jennifer and Haley are lifting, so we'll invite them to come talk with us as well. And we'll get some more people on here live. So if they can come, awesome. If not, we'll at least talk about it. And then, like you said, right after that, the Olympics is starting and the CrossFit Games, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we will do this, because the jerk is an important enough topic to come back to that second article. But I feel like we're going to have a bunch of games and Olympic Games discussion between them.
Definitely.
Cool. Look at that teaser for the future.
Yeah.
And next week I'll mention how long legs was as well. We'll see. Which coincidentally, people with long legs, sometimes it's harder to get them to jerk correctly.
Correct.
Although I feel like that's not the type of long legs in this movie. I'm actually interested. All right, answer me this. Does the name Long Legs make sense after watching the movie?
Not in the way, it's not like, well, I don't know. Like it's not like random.
Okay, it's not a random name.
Yeah, like that name is something.
Okay, because I mean that is that is a creepy word, long legs, and then it makes you think of Daddy Long Legs, which makes you think of spiders, and now it's like, oh, all right, creepy, right? I get it, all right, I'm glad that they're going to address that, because I have been wondering. Cool. I do have a gripe with Regal Cinemas. Do you know that they've removed the Reese's Pieces M&Ms from their inventory?
You gotta hit that. You gotta hit Five Below before you get to the theater. That's what the issue is, right there.
Yeah, the issue is I'm buying it, the stuff there. Yeah, so I made the mistake when I went to go see, what movie did I just go watch? Oh, Maxine. I was like, all right, they don't have Reese's Pieces, but they have the peanut butter M&M, which is garbage.
Yeah,
it
that's
is
very different from Reese's
Yes.
Pieces.
It doesn't even taste like peanut butter. I'm like, well, I'm gonna eat it, but I'm not happy about it, the
Right.
whole time, because I thought it could take its place, and it does not. It is awful. Like, that's one of their worst flavors. Like, M&M should be ashamed of themselves. Okay. Well, yeah. All right. I got to get to Hannaford and load my pockets up with some snacks too. So, okay. Great discussion. Any closing thoughts on the jerk right now?
No, just that it will return in a few weeks.
I agree. It will return. And when in doubt, practice the fundamentals. We'll just parrot Mike Burgener. The fundamentals and the basics, especially for one of the more technical jerks or exercises that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. Which someday, Miguel, you'll coach an athlete and they just get it. And you'll be like, how did you do that? Like, no one does that. And they just do. They're just like, God, this is how you do it. Ta-da. It's perfect split jerk. And you don't have to tell them anything. But then try to teach them how to push jerk. And that might be a different experience. Cool. Awesome. Well, where can people follow you, Miguel?
Right on Instagram at Couldn't Be Miguel.
Awesome. You can follow me, James A. McDermott, on Instagram, and follow the show, The Barbell Strikes Back. Follow Albany CrossFit, Albany CrossFit Barbell Club, if you're on Instagram. And if not, just watch the show.